dreams and jobs slowly fade away as Bristol bears brunt of arts cuts. In the shadow culture minister's seat, there is a degree of hope a Labour government might bring change. "I felt like Bristol was one of the best places in the country to make theatre," says writer and performer Amy Mason, who's lived in Bristol for most of her life. "It was quite punk. It was this very well organized, inclusive and active system of getting work on stage. People could make a living out of theatre." Mason left school at 16 and worked in retail, but a community theatre project not far from the colorful house we're sitting in on the edge of the city offered her the chance to attend a playwright workshop and put on a small show. "They liked it, they gave me a commission, I was like, oh my God, I could be a writer." From there, she started writing short stories, went on to stage 3 shows with Bristol Old Vic, and has grown a career as a TV writer and stand-up comedian. Now, says Mason, the arts in Bristol have gone backwards. There are fewer places to test new work, fewer venues to stage small projects, less cash going directly to artists, and that's all made it harder for individuals to get Arts Council funding, she says. How can it be anything other than a hobby? Data gathered by Performing Arts Union Equity from the UK's Arts Council suggests that there has been a downward trend in real terms arts funding across the UK, with a 16% fall between 2017 and 2022. Bristol Central, the constituency where Labour's Shadow Culture Secretary Thungum Debonair is running for office this week, experienced an average annual funding cut of 61% over the same period. It shows pretty damning results in terms of where austerity has left us, says Equity General Secretary Paul Fleming, who is calling for the next government to raise arts funding to 0.5% of GDP and bring in a serious industrial plan for the sector. Meanwhile, Bristol City Council, BCC, announced significant cuts to its culture budget last year, with 15 organisations losing funding completely. Watershed, a cultural organisation housed in a Victorian goods shed on Bristol's harbour side, is one of the unlucky few. "We'd already cut ourselves to shreds, it wasn't like there was loads of fat in the system," says Claire Reddington, Watershed CEO, who has worked here in various roles for 2 decades. About 19% of Watershed's income comes from arts funding, BCC, Arts Council England, AC, and BFI. That money is really important, says Reddington, allowing Watershed to implement access and inclusion measures, offer cheap tickets for young people, and take artistic risks. It also runs Pervasive Media Studio, a free workspace for artists. With real terms cuts and council funding disappearing, these things become tougher. If you try to build ambitious new things and then the funding runs out, the community, skills and experience you've brought together start to drift away, Reddington says. For us, the challenge is, we would rather be making art, supporting artists, engaging with communities. But what we're doing is thinking about profit and fundraising. Across the water, the Bristol Old Vic, the city's main producing theatre, is facing similar issues. Charlotte Jeeves, executive director here since 2019, says they've suffered real terms funding cuts from AC. Their £1.25 million allocation has been frozen since 2012. If it had kept pace with inflation, it would be £1.742 million, she says. That would mean we wouldn't be running at a loss. We're at our 4th year of losses. Then you layer on top of that, local authority funding cuts from central government. Bristol Old Vic has also had its council funding cut completely. Jeeves says the organisation is doing more with less, expanding its outreach work with schools, which she sees as a crucial counterpoint to arts education cuts, and doing longer runs of fewer individual shows. If we continue being in a loss-making position, that will impact the shows we can do, but also the activity we can do across the whole city. That is a real concern. Linda Rook, president of Equity and a working actor, lives in Bristol. I know writers in Bristol who worked with local theatre companies, small and large, who are feeling commissioning has just disappeared, she says. This is about longevity, and there's a real struggle once you're not sure exactly what your income is going to be,